Do the same principles that apply to running a business also apply to running nonprofits? Well, we're about to find out that, as well as the basic and most important do's and the most important don'ts to success in running one of over 1.5 million nonprofits that now exist in the United States. If you want your nonprofit, be it a PTO, an animal shelter, a church, or Friends of your local zoo, to prosper and best accomplish its mission, you might want to listen to our guest suggestions. Boris Frank has been consulting and advising nonprofits for 50 years. That's a lot of years. He has also served as executive director of Friends of the Dane County Zoo, so he's been on both sides. He's done a lot of stuff in his time. Recently, he helped author and now teaches a course on running nonprofits at Madison College. Boris, thanks for being with us on this edition of Insights.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a favorite subject of mine.
I
obviously.
bet it is. You've been doing a lot of consulting for a long time.
A great deal. Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 500-600 clients that I've worked with over the years.
So you've learned some lessons. You've
I've
got some lessons to share with us.
Absolutely. Things that I feel strongly about.
But I know you're the world of nonprofits. How is running a profitable business require the same skills as running a successful
Many of them. And when you're running a nonprofit, it is a business. Just
what do you
as
mean
surely
it's a business? What do
it's
you
a
mean?
business because you have administrative duties, you have budgets, you have planning. You are worrying about the bottom line. I think one of the misunderstandings is that a nonprofit doesn't make money. Big mistake.
Why?
And it's because nonprofits, if you don't make money and you don't have appropriate and adequate reserves and funds for programs and sustainability, like any other business, you're going to be out of business, in effect. So I think the mistake is zeroing out budgets at the end of the year. I see that.
You mean as opposed to having a surplus profit?
Absolutely, absolutely. As a matter of fact, there are a number of nonprofits that believe you should have 50% of your annual budget in reserve on a continuing basis, so that if you do run into serious problems and crises, you have something to fall back on.
Well, the model of business, of course, is to make the most money you can.
Mm-hmm. That's not the model for the nonprofit. That model is service. However, you still are running a business in the truest sense. So you have to have business skills. The number of people who have business skills and MBA or other coursework who are running nonprofits is very small. Most of us have come up through our profession. Mine was a TV producer director. That's what I was. I had never had a course or a class in anything I teach now. That's crazy. When you
is
think
that
about it.
still true right now if you look at the people who run nonprofits?
Very much so. Yeah, you have nurses who are thrust into administrative positions. You have people in human services, all types of professional status that where they have never had the grounding in how to run a business.
It sounds like the old Peter principle. People rise to their level of incompetence.
That's true. Some of them are competent because they've learned by the seat of the pants.
I see.
And that's me. That's exactly the way I am. I never had a course, for instance, or a class in accounting. And I was the financial manager for Wisconsin Public Television in its earliest days.
My goodness.
That's silly. Now, that brings up one of the basic principles. And
yes.
Probably the biggest one that I feel is so important. You want to find people who know more than you do. That to me is
management?
Anything. I like to have people surrounding me and working with me who know more than I do.
This is if you're executive director?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I want to have good administrative staff. I want people who have understanding of finance, insurance. I could go on and on.
But if you are executive director, shouldn't you know this stuff?
I should, but unfortunately, I never was given the opportunity to take those classes.
But let's say if you're looking at the executive CEO of Enron, and he says, well, I didn't know accounting. It's not my fault. Do you feel like that? It's not his fault?
Oh, I don't feel that it's not his fault. The fault would be in not finding the people with the skills who can bring those to the table and make sure that the organization is operating appropriately.
I guess I'm picking an issue here with you. We wouldn't hold that guy or woman harmless at Enron or at some company that does bad things under her watch, they'd say, you better know. Shouldn't the CEO or whatever you call it, or the executive director of a nonprofit, know enough about numbers and accounting so they know when there's something really wrong?
I would hope that they would have basic knowledge like that, but still, I want to have people around me who know much more about that than others. Give you a small example. When I was at Channel 21, I came in and I was made the financial manager. I knew nothing. I really did not understand it. There was a person on staff who was highly skilled in that. I promoted her to a position of financial manager. She kept me out of trouble. And she taught me. And even though I was the executive director and she was ancillary staff, additional staff, she was the one who really kept me and the organization on track. And that to me is a basic thing. In TV production, it's the same thing. I want to find people who are better at running a camera, at directing, at all of those. If I'm the producer, I want to hire the best people I can.
But that fits when you have a big budget. What if you don't have a big organization? It's not a big nonprofit.
That's why we have volunteers. And the volunteers are an absolutely critical part of the equation. And finding people who can do it, who can work on the periphery, not in a staff position, not in a paid position, but that we bring into the mix and can assist us in those areas.
Okay. So when we're listing the do's and don'ts, one of them is either you know about business or you make sure you have someone at your right arm who does.
You're right on target.
Okay. Let's start with the negative, all right? What is the dumbest thing people do in running nonprofits?
I think doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, the definition of insanity to some extent, because we've done them lockstep for so long and not truly thinking outside the box. For instance, take just strategic planning. I think one of the big mistakes is that we do not understand strategic planning and don't do it in a way that will sustain an organization. It often isn't even a priority for many organizations. We know what we have to do. We've got a mission. Let's just do it without putting together mission, vision, your values, goals, objectives, and most important, outcomes. What difference do we make? What difference are we going to make because we're doing all of this?
Well, now I'm not in this world, so I don't know what all that means. I mean, outcomes, you're talking about how do you measure what you do, or what does that mean?
Measurement, and that's my case for support. This is the impact that we're going to have on society, for an individual, for a family, whatever it may be. And to me, that is something that's often forgotten and is one of the key issues that I've got in a strategic planning process. We don't carry it through to impact. Here's what we do. We expect that it's going to result in something, but we have no measurement to determine, are we really being successful?
Let me hit the rewind button. Can you give me all those 5 or 6 things you just said?
Absolutely.
Start with the first.
Number one, we've identified a need, obviously. We've created a mission. When you create a nonprofit organization, you incorporate, you have to come up with a mission statement. What's your purpose? Next, what...
Can we stop there?
Yep.
The Red Cross, what do you think their purpose is?
They're twofold. They provide services in case of a disaster, and they raise blood. And those happen to be two different
So that would be in their mission
parts
statement.
Of the organization.
That's an example of mission statement.
Exactly.
We all know. Okay,
Yep.
so you got to have a mission statement. Be clear what you're all about.
Purpose.
Can nonprofits exist without one?
I don't think so. Okay. And as a matter of fact, when you incorporate, you have to state that. And the Internal Revenue Service insists that you identify that.
So no problem. Everyone has one.
Got to have it.
Got to have it. But do they sometimes have a mission statement that doesn't really state their true mission?
Or it's outdated also.
Oh, so you have to revisit this mission statement.
Absolutely.
See if you're still on target.
I was working with a humane society, and they took a look at the mission, official mission. This was it. They were responsible, in this order, by the way, for wild animals, tame animals, women, children, and prisoners in Dane County.
Oh my gosh.
Now, at the turn of the century, that's what a humane society did.
Uh-huh.
They never really updated it.
Wow.
And they realized that they have changed tremendously, and they really need to Update it in a great way. It was a great example.
Number 2, we passed mission statement. What was the second?
Vision.
Vision. How's that
Critical
different from mission?
role of the board. Where do we want to be in a year, 2, 5, 20 years? Are we thinking of going out of business? March of Dimes, remember them?
Yes.
They cured their disease, polio. They went out of business.
Didn't they try to stay in business?
They are in business. Now they're dealing with the childhood, critical childhood issues.
Oh, okay.
So they changed their mission. They realized that they had an excellent organization that they could redirect in dealing with other issues. So
and the difference between vision and mission?
Mission is what we do. Vision is where we want to go.
Okay, so a long-term kind of plan.
Correct.
Okay, and number 3?
Number 3, values. What's our value system? So if we go to potential donors, what is the value system we're asking them to embrace?
Okay, when you were Friends of the Zoo, what was the value system?
Protection of animals, perpetuation of animals, in a variety of ways. We're seeing to it that some of them that are endangered are going to be living and part of our society for years to come. So that's our core issue. Now, entertainment is another part of it. Education is another part of it. All of those are within the...
Okay, let's back up a little before we get to the next couple. If your mission is outdated, if your vision isn't stated, your values are just kind of, we want to do good.
Yeah.
What'll happen? What's the negative problem with not having it, but just going about your work?
You come to me, I want to know, how is my money, how is my donation, my in-kind contribution going to contribute to success of fulfilling your mission and fulfilling your purpose? So you got to make the case. You got to make the case.
So
for
without
support.
this, you can't make a good case for why people should give you money.
Absolutely.
Okay. Then, after values?
After values are your goals. What are the goals that you will need to achieve to accomplish that? We want to build a hospital. I'm working on a project now. We want to build a hospice in a community. They've never had a hospice. That is a goal.
What is the organization, by the way?
It is a brand new organization. Happens to be in Marquette, Michigan.
Okay.
And they are looking at first time building a hospice where people will be residents. And it's a great goal. Then we have to decide who's going to do it. How's it going to happen? That's where objectives come in.
That's next.
Measurable.
After goals comes objectives.
Measurable objectives. Who's going to do what by when?
That's like a plan, isn't it?
Sure is. That's why it's called a strategic plan. Yep.
Objectives and strategic plan mean the same thing?
Mm-hmm. Well, the objectives are within a strategic plan. Yes.
Is this all part of a strategic plan,
Absolutely.
what you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
And is there a next, or are we done?
The next is outcomes. What I like to call the so what objectives. We're going to do this, so what? What difference will it make to build a hospice? And what difference are we going to make with society and helping the community in some way? That becomes my case for support.
Okay,
I can then take that to
with the hospice in Michigan somewhere you're consulting on, what are the outcomes that you tell people about?
Helping people deal with death and helping individuals who are dying deal with their mortality, helping the families in terms of accepting that. And it's really a comfort situation, a comfort level.
Helping people be more comfortable.
One of the most difficult times in life, obviously, is death.
Yes.
Yeah. So you could say a strategic plan is, where are we? Where do we want to go? How are we going to get there?
I like that.
That's a good, simple way of saying.
This is an aside, but with hospice, I've always thought that wouldn't be hard to raise money for, because you have all these people who are dying. Some of them have wealth, and I would think, this is a little rough, isn't it? But I would think they'd be very appreciative.
As a matter of fact, it's very interesting. I'm to a point in life where I read obituaries. Mm-hmm. It was like Groucho Marx said, I want to make sure I'm not there. Okay, so I'll read it, and it will very often say, please, as a memorial, give to the hospice. Mm. They may have been in the hospice 2 days, 5 days a week.
Wow.
They won't list a church or a hospital or others. It's that last connection with life that is so important. That's why we see so many that say, please, memorials to the hospice. Yeah, it's very emotional time.
Yeah, so that would be, compared to other nonprofits, a relatively easy thing to perpetuate.
Relatively easy. The easiest, oddly enough, animals.
No kidding.
Yeah, among
Humane
the easiest
Society.
to raise. They're helpless. They're so dependent upon us. They don't have the support network that we can provide to them. And raising money for animals, I have found, is, I hate to say easy. None of it is easy, but it is certainly resonates better.
As long as we're on this sidetrack, what are some of the toughest?
Some of those that deal, well, for instance, for a long time, drug addiction or alcoholism, or people who donors felt you can take care of yourself. You should, you have options as to what you can do. When you talk about children, homelessness, things like that, very often these are people who have no way of controlling their own destiny.
Is homelessness hard or easy to raise money for?
It's easier, especially if children are involved.
Because people have compassion for that.
Yeah.
But not if alcoholics and drug addicted people.
They had a difficult time, and always have. Mental illnesses, all of those, oddly enough, don't seem to resonate as well.
I'm hearing under the do's and don'ts here that fundraising has a lot to do with why you have to do this correctly or you won't get the money.
You have to, I like to call it following best practices. I have an agency assessment document, for instance, that I ask my clients to fill out. They're considered best practices in nonprofit management and operations. And by the way, I'm happy to make that available to anybody who would like a copy of it. It was prepared under a grant from a foundation with our agreement that we would share it with
How would people get it?
They can contact me directly or through
you have a website?
Do not have a website. Never have.
Okay, well, go to my website and email me, and I'll
go
move
to
it on
you.
the course.
You pass them on along.
Fair enough.
Okay.
So you're laying out the do's, and there's an implicit, don't not do this, do this. Any particular grievous errors you want to point out that you've seen over the years in nonprofits?
I think board development and having a strong board that understands its role and avoiding the warm body method of recruitment of board members. The person seems to be ambulatory, is taking nourishment, so let's put them on the board for 3 years. And it's like you're immediately immersed in this organization for 3 years or 2 years. I don't understand that. A number of organizations I'm working with now, the first term is 1 year. I'm even suggesting to some of my clients, why not have 3 months as the first term? We would do that with a staff person. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe it's not a good fit. The whole recruitment process, I find, in many cases, is flawed. Also, we're not recruiting people. We're doing it more to meet a quorum or to satisfy an immediate need rather than looking at the long-term need of the organization.
Do you not want rich people on your board?
I'd love to have rich people on my board. There's one museum in New York. I understand. They still do it. It cost $50,000 to join the board, and they had to go and raise $250,000 in addition. So the larger the board, the better. They'd love to have 70, 80, 90 people on the board.
But is this true for almost any board? Rich is a qualification to be on a board?
Time, talent, and treasure are usually the three names. I want your time, I want your talent, your skills, and I want your treasure. Now, there are many people who can serve and should serve on a board who don't have the treasure. My belief is every board member should make a cash contribution that is meaningful to them annually, because otherwise, why should other people do it?
Right.
I just think it's a basic tenet. I work with one organization. There's a woman who gives $1. She's on welfare. It's a community action agency.
Sure.
That's a stretch for her, but she understands the concept of 100% have done it, and we're asking you to join us, not to do something.
So what I'm hearing underneath this is, don't pick board members who don't have time, who don't have talent, or who don't have money.
Right.
Make sure there's something there, right?
Absolutely, and the talent is so critical. We're finding probably the biggest reason a lot of people don't serve on boards these days, they have the skills, time. It's a time factor. They may be snowbirds. They may have wealth and they're not here. They can't attend all the meetings. We're seeing, at least I'm promoting, more of a movement toward people who take on finite tasks and are not necessarily placed on the board. Would you do this one task? Would you open this one door? And I call them pro bono consultants. I like the phrase. I don't think I've ever been turned down. So rather than requiring you to come to meetings and posturing and all the meetings that are run badly and waste of time, which I see, unfortunately, by having people take on a specific task, which may be 2 hours, it may be 20 minutes. I recently had a situation like that. Somebody put in 20 minutes on a project, and it resulted in about a $30,000 contribution to a project. That
Approaching someone they knew or had a connection.
Who knew other contacts and knew of a way to move it forward. So we try to force people into our pattern of operations, boards, and committees. Committee is a very scary word. The only scarier word is terrorism. It's just a very scary word because people have had lousy experiences with committees. They've come to meetings, their time has been wasted, they've gone off on tangents. We have to keep the committee busy, so let's give them busy work. Not a very good way of doing it. So I'm encouraging more of this pro bono consultant concept, which I found very useful.
Is the world getting harder and harder for nonprofits to make it? You keep hearing about that people are less generous, more besieged with more places to give money.
We're a very generous country. We give a lot. It's growing, but we could do better. I think we are just inundated with the number of nonprofits. As you say, 1 million or so. In Dane County, we have currently 5,323 nonprofit organizations.
That's in a population of about 450,000.
That's right. And that's the highest per capita in the United States.
Why would this college capital community?
Because everybody's got their cause, their purpose.
Which I have a feeling is another area you might want to talk about. Duplicity.
Exactly.
No, that's not the word. When you say
duplication of service.
Duplicity, something
not duplicity.
else. Sorry. Duplication.
Absolutely. And we should be thinking more about coalitions, co-ventures, partnerships, mergers, the dreaded M word.
Why is that so dreaded?
Control. It has to do with who's controlling it. So we'll have literacy organizations. Okay, we do Hispanic, and we do Middle Europeans, and we do Germans, and we do left-handed Czechoslovakians. You know, everybody's got their. Well, I think we have 7, 8, whatever it is in our community. They all need back-of-the-house services. They all need budgeting. They need a computer system, a phone system, a receptionist, a meeting room, a library. Why can't we share those resources? And you know who's forcing us into that now? Good for them, the donors. The more sophisticated donors. They're saying enough already. Why are you duplicating those services that could be done on a collegial basis, on a combined basis?
So would you add a new rule to your dues, which is look around the world of nonprofits and see who you could be joining with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that should be part of the strategic planning process. Keep going back to that. Because to me, the strategic plan drives everything else.
Okay. Yep. How about people who start a nonprofit from scratch? Mistakes they make?
Expecting that they're going to be able to change the world overnight, not coming into it with fiduciary understandings and what their financial requirements will be in starting up. Just out of pocket, it's about $1,000 to start a nonprofit. It's not terribly complicated, but it costs $750, I think, currently for the IRS. Well, these are all expenses. And then how are you going to operate in the beginning? Are you going to do it totally with volunteers? Can be done. I was involved in starting an organization.
Plus the spark plug who's starting it.
Yeah.
But what I would assume another thing is this survey of other similar services.
Absolutely. Who's doing what? Benchmarking.
What's that mean?
Benchmarking means looking around the country and what other programs are there that we can use as a benchmark for success in our situation. Other communities
Isn't that
may
less
be doing
fun than coming up with a great idea and saying, I'm going to do it, and just going out?
Occasionally you'll find something that is truly unique and innovative.
Uh-huh.
I don't like those words. I really don't.
Why?
But
Why?
Why does it have to be unique and innovative? Why can't it have worked in Austin, Texas, and we bring it to Madison, Wisconsin?
Mm-hmm.
And they have a history, and they have done many of the things that we can now adopt and accept in our own operations. So we don't have to reinvent. And it just becomes, to me, much more workable. So yes, a good study, a good survey of who else is doing it. And should we be working together? Again, it comes back to your original question. Should we be doing something on a partnership coalition basis?
Have we covered the waterfront of do's and don'ts?
Oh, gee, there are many, many others.
I know there was something you wanted to get in.
Yeah, there are two things that I feel, if we want to just leave it on kind of a lighter note. Number one, when I run an organization, I sat down, for instance, with the staff at the zoo, and then the first day I said there will be 10 laughs a day here. You got to have 10 laughs a day. If I don't hear 10 laughs a day here at this organization, there's a problem.
Why is that?
Because we've got to have some fun.
Uh-huh.
It's got to be enjoyable. If you're working for a nonprofit, to a certain extent, you've committed yourself to poverty for the rest of your life. You might as well expect that. Okay, so let's at least enjoy it. We're passionate about what we do. So goodness sake, let's have fun. And my last one is marry somebody very wealthy.
That's good. I would think, though, that if you are committed to poverty, if there's lower pay in the nonprofit world, well, wouldn't it tend to attract, in terms of managerial skill, a lower level of skill?
It translates into the passion people have for certain things. I do a lot of mentoring. Many people that I work with are in the corporate world, in the business world, the for-profit world, and they'll come to me and say, how can I do something that is meaningful in my life? And how will my obituary be different than the person who said, love to watch the Green Bay Packers play football? Is that all they did to contribute to society? That's why, to me, it's so rewarding. Incredibly rewarding to be in the nonprofit world and the things that we do and what we can accomplish with the assistance of others, their riches, their volunteer time, and so on.
Boris Frank, that is a nice note to leave us on. And I thank you for your contribution here, and I hope you'll join us on the next edition of Insights.